study abroad journeys, a big part of that success happens post-admit, right? Like a big part of the help and assistance that students need actually happens once they've received their admit letters and are off to either go to the US. They need to figure out, a lot of logistical stuff. And the biggest challenge is actually getting internships and jobs in the US, right? So what we're going to do and what we're aiming to do is build a community and, build the largest community of international students in the US, and not just have a community of international students, but also connect them to high quality mentors and people who've been there and done that. Like Vishesh rightly said, it would be great to get feedback from someone who's actually interviewed for the job that you want, or someone who actually went to the university that you went to, or someone that has actually walked the path that you want to walk. So it's a lot easier for you to not make the same mistakes that they did and quickly be on the right track, right? So we will be organizing, right now we're focusing on organizing sessions that appeal to a much broader audience. So for instance, our first session with Debrup and Pritash was actually on what you should do pre-departure, a packaging checklist, how you should look at housing, phone, finding a great service provider for your phone, etc. Our second session was actually on LinkedIn. And we're trying to keep all our sessions with a very particular career focus in mind, because I think, of course, we want to help with all of the other stuff too, and feel free to ask questions on Slack. But the most important thing and the reason for this community is to help you guys succeed in your careers in the US, right? So the first part of that will be more generic, which will be stuff that appeals to everybody. Building your LinkedIn, which is that masterclass has already happened. The second part of that will be building your resume. The third part of that is likely to be how to sort of have a LinkedIn networking strategy, right? So we're planning to do all of that, and you will see much more specific career track focused sessions coming up as well. So on the Slack channel, there's a consulting career track channel, there's a finance career track channel, data science, computer science, product and project management as well, right? So we'll be doing with experts sessions on those specifically, but once the basics are in place. So the basics are getting your LinkedIn, your resume, and other stuff in place, which has a more broad-based appeal, and we'll take it from there. So without further ado, I think we have enough people who've joined. Welcome to the session, guys. I'd love to introduce three of our speakers. We have Debrup here, who some of you may already know and may have attended some of his sessions before. And we have Navnika, who's both of them have been, TAs and RAs and GAs while they were actually at university. So they will be talking about their experience and what is needed to actually be in these positions. Debrup will be speaking a little more about, what other opportunities are available on campuses in the US. And Vishesh, we have Vishesh here, who's actually, one of the earliest members of our community, and he's headed to Georgia Tech this fall, in fact. And, when we were chatting about his sort of journey, he told me that he'd already started speaking to professors while sitting here. So he's going to tell you a little bit more about, what to do there. And I know a lot of you had questions about whether you can get a TA-ship or an RA-ship in your first semester. And I think Vishesh would be a wonderful person to address some of those. So not going to take up more time from our fantastic speakers, and I'm going to let them begin. Debrup, Navnika, Vishesh, over to you guys.
So who's starting?
I nominate you, Debrup.
Okay, so thank you for the very good introduction, Megha, and love to be part of this channel. So with respect to on-campus jobs, the first question I often hear is, we are going with a loan, we have a lot of dues here, the expenses are high, can we get something from day one of the first semester? There are two ways to look at it. Firstly, from when you're going on day one, you might not be able to look for something unless you start way ahead. So what I did was, when I got my admit, not just at NYU, but I got to a few other schools as well. And I saw the best option would be to reaching out to the professors, which is what Vishesh was also doing. So I went to the department website and I saw the professors who were teaching the courses which were aligned to my interest. Because like I'm in mechanical engineering, there are 3 or 4 specialties. There's manufacturing, there's fluid mechanics, there's controls. Whereas I'm interested only like in manufacturing as well as in fluid. So I was looking at those professors and writing them a brief email, not like a big one, but a brief email stating that these are my qualifications, I have interest in this field. And then I included my resume and some links for my journal publications. And I asked them, do you have, or do you plan to hire any GA or RA or a TA position for the fall semester? Because I think I got my admit in February. So it was like 6 months before, and obviously it won't be possible for him to say for sure whether there will be or not, but he told me, yes, there can be options. We always hire people, but you have to be in touch with me. I mean, because we get lots of resumes from multiple people, and it's not always possible to remember everyone. So what I did was, after I just didn't reach out to that professor, I reached out to multiple of them. Some didn't reply to my email, and gladly, since I was in the US, because I did my undergrads also at SUNY Buffalo, I could call some of them. I just took the phone, I mean, and dialed their office number, and I spoke to some of them. And I just discussed about my interest, like, these are my specialties. I've done my undergraduate research in 3D printing. Do you think I can have any options in your lab? So that's when they showed interest, and that's when they started a conversation. So what's important is to build a conversation, because that's when the professors would get to know if you are eligible, or if he's willing to give you the position from the first semester. And speaking about TA positions, one thing I can say is I got a TA from the first semester of my master's. I was a TA in my undergrad as well. The reason being, there are rumors, and a lot of people think that it's not possible to get a TA from the first semester, but you all are going for your grad studies. So, and that means what, you have passed your undergraduate courses. So approach to the professors by asking, are there any undergraduate courses that you are teaching for which I can be a TA? Like, I was a TA during my entire master's for undergraduate courses like thermodynamics and fluid mechanics throughout my master's, like for 3 or 4 semesters. So, and before the semester, I again followed up, like, professor, that I'm reaching New York in like a couple of weeks. Do you think you might have a position available? Just as a follow-up email. And while they still didn't say that they have, but after like a week or so, they reached out to me on their own. They were like, I was just thinking about you, and there is a vacancy, come and meet me at my office tomorrow. And I went there, had a short interview, just discussed what will be the role, and he asked a few basic questions if I knew fluid mechanics or not. And that was it, I got it. And that built a relationship. I mean, and then obviously, once you are a TA or a grader for a professor, you'll have to make sure you do a good job, because it's not just a matter of one semester. You'll have to keep trying for every other semester. So if the professor likes you, then if he's teaching something else in the next semester, he's going to hire you. That's what he did. Next semester, he was teaching heat transfer. He hired me immediately. So that's how this happens. I mean, it's like a built-in relationship, I would say. Like, you have to start with the networking and have a conversation with him about your interest. Same with, like, let's say you don't get something in the first semester. What I would say is, if you're interested in working with a professor, go and meet with him, discuss with him about your interests, and do well in his courses. I mean, obviously, you need a good grade if you want to be a TA under any professor. So I believe these are some of the pointers I can share about my experience being a TA, like for both undergraduate and masters.
Thanks, Debrup. Navnika, would you like to maybe jump in and talk about how you got your TA-ship? Because I think I remember you said that you didn't do a TA-ship in your first semester,
yeah,
right?
That's right. So unlike both Debrup and Vishesh, I decided to try for my TA-ship in my second semester because, excuse me, so I thought that I could kind of build a relationship with my professors first. I thought I could actually go there and attend their classes and know what they're actually like. And so the thing about on-campus jobs is that you don't just have the option of being a TA and an RA. There's like a wide variety of actual campus jobs that you can do. Like, for example, you can work at the library, or, you can help the admin side of the people. And me specifically, I worked at a dining hall in my first semester. So, my job was to, serve people and help the chefs and make pancakes and things like that. And it was actually a lot of fun, and I met a lot of people that way. And so in my first semester, even though I didn't want to try out to be a TA yet, I did use this as a means of earning some money on the side. Um, and for my second semester, I contacted one of my professors who had already taught me that semester. I really, really liked the way that he would, conduct the class and make everybody understand certain concepts and everything. And he said that yes, I do have a position open, and that's how I became a TA for a first year course. So since it was a first year course, I kind of just like Debrup said, like, if you're a graduate student, it's kind of easy for you to be a TA for an undergraduate class because you already know some of the concepts that they're going to be teaching. So that's kind of my experience of how I got a TA-ship. But yeah, and if anybody else would like to share anything, that would be
Yeah,
great.
Vishesh, I think it might be great to hear from you because a lot of the concerns that I've heard from the group on Slack and on Slido as well is that there are particular universities where they don't offer, incoming students or people in their first semester RA-ships or TA-ships or graduate assistantships. But I think, guys, the one pointer I would have here is that every university has its own rules and regulations. It might be a good idea just in case if you don't know for sure, two pointers. One is try and find a senior who actually went there. A lot of you are going to universities where we have mentors from your universities on the Slack channel. Just feel free to post there or reach out to a senior on LinkedIn who you see has a graduate assistantship or a research assistantship listed and check with them what the policies were. It also might be a good idea to reach out to your university careers office. They may be able to tell you about some of the jobs that are available on campus that may not be an assistantship to a professor, but also would be a great way for you to get some extra pocket money on the side while working on campus and being well within the law of your visa, making sure that you're only working 20 hours a week and working on campus. So yeah, I'm going to let Vishesh take it from here.
Yeah, Megha, I think what you said was absolutely correct. Like, I can speak from the perspective of Georgia Tech and from the perspective of QCF, which is the course that I'm the track that I'm going for. And specific to that, I can for sure say that it's not TA-ships are not generally given to you on the courses that you are yet to complete, because it depends on the grade that you are going to achieve in those courses. But the thing that I found out from the people who had already completed the course was that you can always do cross track TA-ships, which is basically the tracks that the courses that you might want to do a TA-ship for might not be part of your curriculum. So your grade does not matter in that. So like I started to view it more as not that you are doing a TA-ship under maybe business studies or maybe QCF. What you look at it as is that the track is a compilation of courses. So you could go for some other course which is actually probably part of your curriculum in some other way, but it's not a course that is within your track. It's not a part of your track officially.
So as a follow-on question to that, actually, Vishesh, say for something isn't in your track, then how do you demonstrate to the professor that you have skills in that department or would be, a good TA or an RA? And I think I'm going to also ask each of you to maybe explain what the responsibilities of each of these roles is, right? Like as a grader or as a research assistant or as a graduate assistant, what does it entail? And what level of expertise do you need in this subject to have the confidence to reach out to a professor and be like, hey, you know what, I studied this in my undergrad and I went to XYZ college back here in India. I got the highest grade maybe in a particular subject, or I have, interest or research projects that I've done in there. So if you could, if the three of you could shed some light on that, I think it'll help all of the students know that this is broadly what professors also expect from each of these roles, and then they can approach those conversations accordingly.
Sure, yeah. So if I can start if like nobody else. For me specifically, I didn't have to kind of prove to my professor that I knew about this, because since he'd already taught me in the same kind of stream, he already kind of knew how competent I would be in that kind of a course. And regarding the roles of a TA, you can do multiple things, like you have to grade papers, you have to monitor laboratory sessions for students, you can conduct office hours. Office hours are like this a couple of hours every week where students can come to you and ask questions regarding their assignments or anything in the course. And I was also kind of in charge of coordinating with the students for my professor's office hours. So you can do like small things like that. When it comes to grading papers, that's actually the easiest part, because the professor gives you the answer key. So all you have to do is just kind of compare their paper with the answer key, and just it's like a pass or fail, yes or no kind of a
Got
question.
it. So I was not
Uh,
expecting that. I thought that
yeah,
would be
so
the
that's
hardest part.
for me, that was the easiest part. But for things like conducting laboratory sessions and for holding your own office hours, like, yes, that you kind of need to be a little bit knowledgeable in that course, because you have to actually answer students questions and things like that. So that was a little bit of my experience. And if anybody else would like to speak about that as well.
I had a question. Can I go ahead?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So like, are the students are from our same class, or like they are juniors, like, or the undergrads?
So usually, as grad students, we usually take classes for undergrad students, so people who are juniors, and it's easier to get a position from a class that you have kind of already taken or that you already have experience in. So yeah, we usually like take these kind of positions for junior classes.
I would like to add a few things. If Mega, can I go ahead?
Oh,
Yeah, absolutely.
So first thing with respect to the grading, I mean the duties, one other thing which I had to do was proctoring exams. So the professor was there and I was also there. I mean, basically had to make sure nobody's cheating. And I was like, okay, it's one of those things where it's a little, I mean, I don't know what to do, because if somebody is copying and I catch him, then there are very bad consequences. So I always used to go and warn them, like, do not copy, because I don't want them to get an F just for like doing some minor stuff. But on a serious note, I mean, if you are being a grader or a TA, apart from what Navnika mentioned, you might also sometimes have to hold recitation sessions in which like it's, I mean, I saw that in SUNY Buffalo when I was an undergrad, that the TAs also had to hold separate classes in which they had to go through practice problems for students. Because let's say for a math course, the professor is teaching the content, but then somebody needs to make sure you practice. So the TA used to come, hold separate sessions, and those are like official sessions. You have to register for those as well. So that way, I mean, you basically get to practice more problems, and the TA also helps you answer questions and tell these are some important problems you should consider for the exams based on past years, things like that. And regarding the teaching thing, like students, I would say that during my undergrad, when I was a TA, I often had students who were who are my friends. Reason being, the way it works is people can take courses at their will. What I'm taking in the second year, like I took a heat transfer course in my second year, whereas it was like scheduled for a third year course. I took it as second year and I passed it with an A. But people who were my friends, I mean, most of them, they took it based on the schedule that they were given. They took it in the third year. So I was in a situation when I was grading my friends' papers, but I made sure I was not biased. So what I used to do is hide the name, grade the paper, and grade it only during office hours and not like taking it home, because there might be options when somebody friend is visiting and be like, hey, how much did I get? And I'm like, I'm not supposed to disclose this. Only the professor will be disclosing. So these are some of the things you might have to go through. I mean, don't panic. I mean, as long as you're being honest and being not biased towards anybody, then you should be fine. Because the professor, and also one more thing I wanted to add was partial grading. That came like, sometimes it came like a tricky situation for me, because somebody has written a, like I was a grader for one of our engineering computation course, in which the professor had told, if somebody writes this part of the code, you get partial credit. So that's when I had to look at the code like in more details as to how they have written, if it makes sense or not. And that's where my knowledge also came into factor, because I wanted to run the code and see if it makes sense. Because somebody might have a different approach. It might not be everybody is doing it the same way. If the final answer is wrong, it might be due to some wrong inputs. But if the method is to give them like 65 to 70% of the points. And the professors then used to check, like whenever I had doubts, I was like, professor, these are like 500 students in the course. I see some similar patterns and I'm grading this in a way, just want to make sure if this is on the right track or not. If the professor says yes, it's good, because whenever you come across a situation where you have questions, it's always better to ask, because you don't want to be grading all the papers and then having to regrade again. That's the worst thing, because you're allowed to do only 20 hours a week. So if your 20 hours gets passed and you still need to regrade, then you're technically doing it for free. So make sure to work.
Yeah, so actually that's an interesting point. Like, especially when you're doing work like this, guys, where, as a teaching assistant, the scope of work that you all have described, it doesn't seem like something that, you can just switch on and off. Or like, say, Navnika said she was working, in the dining hall. That's something where you can be like, okay, I was here for 20 hours. Now, with something like this, where you have to take on additional responsibility, or you have to maybe plan a lesson. Agnel has actually asked, do you get a chance to actually teach as a teaching assistant? So how do you sort of, for those 20 hours, how do you make sure that you are not overstepping those and that you are paid fairly for your time? And after this, I'd love for you guys to also talk about, for research assistantships and other kinds of jobs that are available online. Navnika, maybe we can come back to how you got, your dining hall job as well, because I think a lot of students may benefit from hearing about that too.
So yeah, I'll take up that question about teaching. So I actually, didn't officially teach, but unofficially, when I was in my office hours, people used to come to me and they were like, the professor explained, but it didn't make sense to me. So I was like, okay, let me understand from a student's perspective as to what are the questions he might have. Because in a 45 to 1 minute to 1 hour class, all professors might not be able to go through everyone's question one and one, then the lecture won't be covered. So I used to sometimes take up those questions and teach on the basis of those questions. But sometimes I felt when I was teaching or when I was explaining with a problem, the concept was more clearer to the student, because many students understand the topic better by solving problems. Different students understand differently. So that is something I did during my undergrad mostly.
Thanks for sharing, Debrup. Navnika, you want to maybe... Sorry, Vishesh.
Yes, sorry.
Navnika, please go.
Okay, so just addressing the thing about the 20 hours. So the way for my professor is that I wasn't the only TA. Like he had a few other TAs as well. And it depends on the professor. Like if the professor needs a lot of help, then he might, hire more TAs and so on and so forth. And between all of us, we were able to kind of come up with a schedule which, worked out for all of us, and that, we didn't have to put in too many hours each. And the professor was very kind of flexible about, if you say you can work only these many hours a week, then I will only give you work for these many hours a week. And I'm sure that there are many other TAs, and then we can all coordinate and get all of the work that is done is required. So for me personally, I didn't have the issue where, I would 1 week I would have to work more than 20 hours. And one more thing is that if you want to be a TA and if you know the professor and stuff, and some professors, if you're a TA, they don't require you to kind of take office hours or anything like that. they say that you can do the kind of work that you want. If you just want to grade papers, you can just grade papers. If you just want to take office hours, you can just take office hours. And so if a professor has like a lot of TAs like that, he can kind of designate tasks for each of them based on their preference. So that was
Got
my
it.
experience. So
Got it. And I'm sure everyone has a varied experience. Vishesh, I know you wanted to say something.
Yeah, actually, I don't have any experience in this at all. So maybe Navnika or Debrup can correct me if I'm wrong in here. But from whatever modules I have had the chance to see already, I see that there are, like for the assignments at least, there are grading rubrics that actually guide the grading to a very, to an extremely minute level. So it's very quantitative. Like there are very few cases where there is actually qualitative discretion where you can choose what grade to be given to an answer, like what are to be given to an answer. But yeah, so that makes the job pretty objective, the job of grading at least. But yeah, that is only for the few assignments. And another point that I wanted to add was tying back to Megha's point about how you find courses outside your curriculum, but courses that.
Sorry, guys. I think Vishesh got dropped off. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, super. We'll just wait for Vishesh to join back in. But till then, Vidhi has asked, how much is a PA paid on average? Also, is there any tuition fee waiver for TAs? I know Vidhi, for instance, there are tuition fee waivers. Again, it depends on the university, and I think it depends to some extent on the professor as well. But I'm going to let Debrup and Navnika answer that actually.
So if you're a master student, then basically for a TA, you might not get the tuition fee waiver, but the pay is slightly higher, because when I was in SUNY Buffalo, like 6-7 years back, at that time, I think the regular pay at the dining centers were around $8 or $9, which was like the minimum salary at that time in New York State. Whereas since I was a TA, I got, I think, $12 or $13 an hour at that time. And same with NYU. I mean, NYU pays a pretty higher salary, I would say, as I've compared with many other schools. So I came in 2016 to NYU and they paid like $16 an hour for the usual jobs. But there were some like high-end, I mean, some courses like for, I think, computer science departments where they were paid slightly higher. And in NYU, there is a pattern that every year they increase the pay by $1. So I came in 2016, my rate was $16 an hour. This year, people will be getting paid $21 an hour. And that doesn't mean 100 years later, it will be $121. But that's, I mean, this pattern I've noticed, like that's what has been happening at NYU at least. So yeah, with respect to that, I remembered because when during 2017, in some courses, I think we were getting paid $17, and few TAs did get paid up to $22 an hour at that time, which was pretty high. But I think those were like pretty specific, like some courses in computer science, some in electrical, it really varied.
Got it. So just to summarize, your pay as a TA depends on your university, and it could depend on how unique your skill set is, or how specific that course is and what you're bringing to the table. But on average, the pay, the wages per hour will be much higher than they would be maybe for another on-campus job. So it's definitely worth trying to get one of these. Sudhir has actually asked, guys, what's the difference between a TA, a GA, and an RA? So if one of you could take that, that would be great.
So a TA is kind of all the jobs that I mentioned, grading papers and taking office hours and all that. An RA, a research assistant, is actually helping your professor with his specific research work, like, looking for literature that might help, conducting tests, and all of that. So that has a completely different kind of job set and skill set. And a GA, or a graduate assistant, is just like a research assistant, but as a graduate student. And I think, I'm not sure about this because I was not an RA or a TA or a GA, but I think GAs get paid more on average than RAs. So that's kind of like the difference between the three kind of
Got it.
types of
Thanks,
assistant.
Navnika. Debrup, do you want to maybe add something to that?
Yeah, so the way it works is, I mean, I was also an undergraduate research assistant when I was at Buffalo. So the way I saw it, I mean, it wasn't paid for me, but what I got was credits. So that's
Oh,
all.
okay. That's
So
interesting.
I got like, I think 6 credits, which counted towards my graduation. And it was like, I think independent research, that's what it was called. I also got to publish a paper in a conference with my professor, attend the conferences. These really helped actually. I mean, honestly, when I look at it right now, although it wasn't paid, like I wasn't getting bills in my bank account, these experiences really help. So even if it's not paid, I would recommend everyone to talk to professors of asking about if they can pay the tuition related to that. I mean, if they can pay for those 3 credits or so. I mean, if they do, it will be really helpful and it will take you a long way because you're getting the experience, and technically 3 credits, it's a lot of money, at least in NYU. If you don't need to pay for 3 credits, you're basically saving a lot.
So, Devrup, actually, I don't know, maybe I don't know this, but for the larger group as well, like per credit, can you ask a professor to, like, say if you're doing research in exchange for credits, how do you offset your tuition against that? Because I know that if you get some of these positions, there's a very clear tuition fee waiver for a particular semester. But say the system that you described right now, which is on a credit basis, could you maybe talk about that in a little more detail?
So, I mean, at NYU, from what I've heard from students, is what the professor does sometimes is they pay for the entire tuition. Like 3 credits, let's say it's, I don't know what's the rate now. If it's like $1,000 per credit, $3,000, the professor waives it. I mean, it's waived from your university billing.
Got
And they
it. Okay.
And that's how it sometimes was. Sometimes my professors say, I can pay up to 60% of it or 50% of the tuition, you pay the rest. So there's always like a mutual understanding between the two, but it's best if you discuss with the professors because they'll be the best one to advise. If you don't ask, you won't get it. So that's the first thing I would say. You need to ask the professors everything.
Got it. So guys, everyone who's listening, please make sure that while you're talking to professors, either this semester or next semester, make sure that you ask them what is possible. Make sure that you check very clearly, what is actually possible, A, in terms of compensation, B, in terms of credit, actually for each credit, whether there's a fee waiver, whether there's a tuition waiver as well, and make sure that you know exactly what it is so that going in there is complete clarity and you know what to expect from giving your time here. Other than that, Debrup, Navnika, I'd love to know what is the professional benefits of being a GA or a TA or an RA. How does it help to have professors in your corner? How do you leverage these professor relationships, publications, research that you have done, both in interviews or to further your professional career outside of just the salary? And then I'd love to also, I think we've covered a lot of what we wanted to in this session, but I also want to talk about other on-campus jobs. So it's 7:10 now. Maybe for the next 5-10 minutes, we can talk about the benefits of being, working with a professor so closely. And then maybe we can take some more questions, guys, from y'all on, what it is, what are other on-campus opportunities and how to go about finding them.
It's definitely a boost on your resume if you have like a TA or an RA position. And you can prove and say stuff like, oh, I have this kind of leadership experience or like this kind of experience. And that helps. And, if you're an RA or a TA, you build that kind of relationship with your professor. And so, if you need to have like networking, or if you need to have somebody write like a recommendation for you or something like that, that's very, very useful when you're either finding jobs or you're looking for like, say, a PhD or something afterwards. Or so I would definitely say that it's a boost on your resume and your
Got
career
it.
path.
I can add one more thing to it. My research assistantship position, I mean, the experience I had, that helped me a lot during interviews, job interviews, because companies often tell us about an interesting project you did. I mean, I could definitely tell about a course project, but that lasted for only like 2 or I mean, 1 month in an entire semester because that's like a course project. But if I have done a research for like a semester or 2 semesters, I can talk more about it. So that really helped me, and it helped me crack few of the interviews as well. And that's why I would recommend everyone, like, irrespective of what you get, whether it's a TA, RA, GA, just take it because every experience counts. It might not be like a cash payment, I mean, coming to your bank account, but the experience definitely will take you a long way.
Got it. Thank you so much, Debrup. Guys, like, I'd love to hear more questions from you guys in the chat. We have some questions already that we've gotten, I think, which we'll, come to in a bit. But let's take the next 10 minutes to talk about other on-campus roles. Navnika, I know you did some other on-campus roles. Debrup, what has your experience been, and what are the kind of opportunities that are there, and how can our folks, students who are on this call today, maybe apply for some of these jobs while they're here, like be it in the dining hall, be it in the library, etc. Is there a consolidated portal? Typically what I've heard is that, university careers offices put the on-campus jobs in one place. So how do you get access to that, and how do you apply while you're in India so that you don't waste any time?
So with respect to these, I would say that every university does have a portal, while some positions might not be posted in a portal. I mean, what I've seen from my experience.
Got it. Okay.
Apart from being a TA during my undergrad, I was also a tutor I think I used to do like 6 hours a week as a tutor. So in the campus, of course, not like outside, but so those tutor positions, they had a separate website for it. And how did I get to
cool.
about? So when I was like, when you're going through when you're walking across halls and everything, there are sometimes billboards, posters posted. Check if there are any positions available. Like people often post that university bookstore is hiring for like an assistant. Come and talk to us, $15 an hour, something like that. So talk to them. While I saw at NYU, at least most of the positions are posted in the NYU handshake portal, which is the job portal for NYU. But there are stuff which can be achieved by talking to the administrative assistants. Like, let's say you're a CS student. I've seen actually CS students working in our mechanical engineering department as a front desk assistant, like data entry, working with Excel files. Now, those are not always posted in the website. So what they have to do is reaching out to the front desk assistant, ask them, like, do you have a position open for a GA? Like at NYU, they call it everything as a GA role for master student. So just ask them.
Okay.
Same with like other positions I've seen are university bookstores. I said university libraries are there. At university at Buffalo, what I saw, one very interesting position was a desk assistant for the police department in the university. So, obviously I'm not great of being a security guard, but I saw they had a very fun job, like sitting inside the dorm. It's not like sitting outside in the cold, sitting inside the dorm by the door, where everybody has to basically swipe in to open the door. So which means it was basically open for students. They used to sit there, do their homeworks. The sad part was they had to stay awake till 2 or 3 o'clock in the night till the next person could come in for the shift. But I saw everybody and they were like, we don't complain, we get to do our homework and getting paid to do our homework. So many people used to do that, which I saw was a fun job. And dining centers, as Navnika said, it's one of the best places to work. You get so much free food. The amount of Coca-Cola.
That's awesome.
When I was in Buffalo, I survived on Coca-Cola for a long time. Like, it was so good. And the food, not the healthiest, but when you are a student, those are the best food you can have, especially when you see it's for free. So dining centers are definitely another, and also the gyms. Sometimes the gyms or the university gyms might need an assistant to sit by the front desk, make sure students come swipe their card, because other than that, they won't be allowed to enter. So these are some of the things that are coming to my mind. I can think of more at Buffalo because I spent 4 years there, versus at NYU, because at NYU I was mostly a TA and was always job hunting.
Got it. So guys, just a couple of questions that I want to take from the group. Thanks for sharing, Debrup. And guys, if you all have any questions about other part-time jobs that are potentially available, do ask them in the chat. Vidhi has said that I've seen many people doing the masters for almost free. What are the possible ways one can do that apart from scholarships? Also, we have a couple of, Aditya is just surprised that there's a police department in universities. Aditya, yeah, welcome to the USA. I think Debrup and Navnika will be able to tell you in a little more detail about what it is. But I think, campuses are huge and there is a police department at almost all large universities. Chiamaka actually has a question for tuition waivers. Is it typically for GAs or TAs? I think Debrup covered that earlier, Chiamaka. I don't know whether I'm pronouncing your name right, so I'm sorry if I'm not. But yeah, he mentioned that tuition waivers are typically for GAs, not so much for TAs. TAs tend to be hourly positions, but correct me if I'm wrong.
It's for both, but mostly I've seen tuition waivers are for
Got
PhD
it.
candidates. It's not mostly available for grad masters, unless it's like exceptional students and the professor decides to waive off some of the tuition. But we have seen like when PhD students come with an admit, they come with an assistantship as well, like a TA or an RA. So
Got
their
it.
is automatically waived. On top of that, they get paid higher. I mean, their pay is a lot higher than master students for the same task pretty much. Just that they might not have to always grade the courses if the professor has like master's TA and PhD TAs. PhD TAs mostly take the recitation sessions and the labs, and the master's TAs mostly grade the papers and help in proctoring. That's what I've seen.
Got it. That's really helpful, Debrup. Thank you. I hope that answers your question. Yeah, so I think Vidhi's question is interesting. Guys, I'd love to know all of your experience, other than doing masters, what are the ways to sort of, earn money on the side, the 20 hours a week, how can you sort of supplement that? Is that possible? Guys, I'd also like to mention that, working more than 20 hours a week is not legal. And definitely, although the temptation is very high to do that, and I know sometimes, it seems like easy money, the risks are crazy. We've heard of a lot of students losing their visas. So I would highly recommend against it. But I'm going to let Debrup and Navnika speak about this in a little more detail.
Honestly, when I was doing my master's, I was so busy all the time that I cannot imagine working for more than 20 hours a week. Like, I barely managed to work my given hours. I think I worked maybe 10 hours a week. But the thing with especially masters is that every week you have like so many assignments and homeworks and things to do that it's kind of not possible for you to, at least for me, it wasn't possible to work like a full 20 hours a week. So in a way that was good. I didn't have that issue where I would cross 20 hours a week on all these part-time jobs.
Got it. But I mean, like, what did you all notice? I think, it's important to talk about the realities, right? I'm sure there were students who were probably working 20 hours a week or more than 20 hours a week. And how did they manage that? And what would you recommend in the long run? Like, is it important during your master's to focus in the year and a half or the 2 years that you're there on, building your profile, networking, or like I'm saying that the way I see it, and again, I've not gone through this experience, so I could be way off here, is that it's an investment in your time right now. And for short-term gains, you should not sacrifice the longer-term gains, which is, landing an incredible job maybe after your master's versus, making a little extra money during your master's. How do you guys sort of navigate that? Because the temptation is very real also to be able to make money on the side, right? So how do people navigate?
So what I can say is you're not allowed to do more than 20 hours a week legally on campus. So you can't say I'm working 20 hours as a TA. Can I do 5 hours somewhere else? No, you cannot legally. What can you do? If you need to make a little bit more, you can probably do some, like, I don't know if this should be applicable to students initially, you can do some trading in the stock market because that's regarded as a passive income. You should know the difference between a passive income and an active income. So trading is regarded as a passive income. So you can put in like, say $50 in some stocks and see how it grows because you're not actively doing day trading. That is something. What I did was, I mean, it might sound a little weird, but I did my 20 hours of on-campus job. And at the same time, I was involved in multiple research projects, not even related to the university. Those were with like different publications. Like I was working with international journals and publications. And so for those projects, like the Mars rover project, and then I published, I mean, myself and my team, we published like few papers during my master's. So we used to work late, like whole night doing those. How did it help me? Did it help me financially? Probably not. But it did help me in going through to the interviews and talking more about that and having those 7 publications in my resume. That does help. So when you look at making money, you also have to look at the bigger picture and not just what am I going to do during these 3 months of the semester. So that's what I would say. That's what I did, because in no way you're allowed to do more than 20 hours a week. You can do multiple jobs on campus as long as the sum of all the jobs is 20 hours. So you can do like 6 hours here, 8 hours there, and another 6 hours somewhere else. That's allowed. But you can't do more than 20 hours in any way. And during summer, I think it goes to 40 hours a week, irrespective of whether you do on campus or off campus. But off campus, it's an internship. For that, you need a CPT or pre-completion OPT.
Got it. Thanks, guys. That's really helpful. A couple of follow-on questions to this. One, Arjun has asked, are we allowed to do freelance work or day trade while doing our masters? I think day trading, Debrup already mentioned that that's not allowed because it's a very fine line legally, right? Like it's about the intention to make money. I think that's the test, guys, legally. Like if you're actively trying to make money, then it's considered active income. So try and avoid as much as possible getting on the wrong side of the law. Frankly, I'd love to sort of address, Agnel's question on this, that it's not usually about temptations to earn more. It is about anxiety to make ends meet. And I recognize that this is, something that a lot of you are worried about and is something that is going to naturally give everybody nervousness, right? Like a lot of people are living abroad or moving away for the first time. In the next couple of weeks, guys, we're going to do a session not related to careers, but related to actually managing your money. I want to do a session like this because I know most of the nervousness that a lot of our students have is around repaying debt, figuring out how to repay your loan, how to save money. And we will be doing a session on that, and we will talk about it in more detail with a financial expert. So we will be addressing this topic as well. But a lot of the other questions that you all have asked, guys, on like what is allowed and not allowed, it would be great if you could ask that on the Slack channel so that, we can answer those in, and right now make the time while there are so many of us here to answer stuff that's relevant to everybody. So Drumil has actually asked, what are the other ways we can apply for on-campus jobs beside Handshake? Are there any other general portals like Handshake for universities?
Handshake is mostly for NYU. I don't know if it's called Handshake in other schools or not. But
it is.
It is. Yeah.
It is.
So let's say you have arrived in the US and you don't have a job, on-campus job. I mean, which is the case for, I guess, 90% of the people. You can go to the departments directly and talk to the person in charge. You might send an email. But if you're already here, take the opportunity to go and talk to that person. And that might be a blessing in disguise, because remember, if an administrative officer is receiving 30 emails every day from different students, like a department like CS, which has like, I don't know how many, 300 students, then it gets overwhelming for them to reply to everyone one-on-one. So if you go and meet with them in person, that might give you an edge. And also walk into the dining centers, talk to the hiring manager, like, hey, I want to be like, an assistant to the chef. Is there a position open? Which is probably for NYU, it might not always be posted in the Handshake portal, but I did that for like, I think 2 weeks or so initially, but that was through a different program altogether. It was posted somewhere. I found that out and I applied. And same with bookstores as well. You go to the bookstores, talk to them, talk to the manager, that if they're looking for cashiers or front desk assistants. So what I've always realized is, and this has come with the experience in the last few years, is unless you ask, you don't get anything. You have to go and ask. Nobody's going to come and tell you, hey, we are hiring 200 people today. It's not like a mass recruiting. it's limited positions and there are so many students. So you'll have to go and find, and as long as you do that, I guess you should be fine.
So Anisha has actually asked, can you do 20 hours plus credit work for the professor?
That's
Anisha, did I get your question right? If you want to unmute yourself, you can.
Yeah, the question is correct.
Okay,
Basically, you'll save money from doing credit work. It will help you in completing your credits. Plus, you can be doing like 20-hour work also. So just want to check if this is allowed.
I'm not 100% sure about this. From what I understand, it might be allowed because you're not actively working for those. I mean, that is part of your curriculum and the professor is waiving off the fee. Tuition, I mean, technically like a scholarship or something like the university scholarship. But I mean, it's better you talk to the international students office of your university and also the professor. They'll be able to guide you better on this.
So guys, actually next week we are doing a very unique kind of session. It's basically with, someone who's worked in university careers offices and students offices for about 20 years. So I know that, Indian students, we don't typically have the kind of resources or the kind of offices and different services that American universities have. So next week, on the 21st of August, actually, Joe will be joining us. You will be able to ask him everything, in the sense that, you'll be able to ask him a lot of the questions that you're asking Debrup and Navnika about where to go for this, where to find this resource. He will be able to guide you and tell you how to get the most of all of the resources that all of you are going to these incredible universities. Leverage these resources and make sure that you talk to your career services office, you talk to your international students office, you get the best out of all of this. And like Debrup said, in the US, it's not like India. Unless you ask, you shall not receive. So, in India, where we're very used to our offices or professors very proactively sometimes communicating with us, that's not going to be the case in the US. And that's a good thing to sort of keep reinforcing every time, we do a webinar or we talk to each other. Cool. I think someone has asked, if you do end up doing more than 20 hours of work on or off campus, it's better not to tell it to anyone. Heard a story where someone snitched to immigration and they were deported. Oh my God. Yeah, guys, I think general good advice, don't work off campus in your first year. Like in your first year, just don't work off campus because it's too risky legally. But Debrup, Navnika, I'd love to hear from you all. And, I think this message will resonate a lot more from you.
So let Navnika go first and then I'll tell my.
Yeah, I was the first thing is don't work off campus and do not cross that 20 hours. Like every time, so when you join a university, you generally have like an international student orientation, like before your classes, and one of the most important things they tell you is that do not cross that 20 hours. There can be a lot of legal consequences. So just, I cannot say that enough, just don't do it. And so, like I mentioned before, like for either of my jobs, like I never really had the issue of like working over 20 hours because I would either have too much work that I would tell, my employer that I cannot work these many hours, and they were fine with that. So I never had that issue, and because I was so busy all the time, like I mentioned, and in a way that was a good thing because I never had to worry about crossing 20 hours. So that was my experience. So yeah, if Debrup would like to add.
So a couple of more questions that I think we want to take. I want to be mindful of your time, Navnika and Debrup. I know we don't have a lot of time left, but let's answer the last couple of questions. And then guys, whatever questions you have about careers, Debrup and Navnika are both on the Slack channel. So just feel free to post them there and they'll be able to answer a lot of these questions, maybe, on chat whenever they find the time. But I'm going to try and take a couple of the important ones that might be helpful for everyone. Is CPT different than on-campus and off-campus jobs? And will this affect the I-20 status? And Gopal is asking, have you or any of your friends done off-campus jobs? And correct me if I'm wrong, guys, you can do off-campus jobs in your second year, but not in your first year, right?
Let me first answer Gopal's question. Off-campus jobs, you can't do ever unless it's through a CPT. It has to be through a CPT because it has to be an internship technically. So the basic rule is you can't work off campus even for an internship before you're, I mean, you have to be in the US for the first 9 months. Only then you're eligible to work off campus, that too through a CPT. Once that is approved, you can do. And then let's say during the semester, you want to do an off-campus job in your semester, again, it has to be approved to another CPT. So that is the only way to do off-campus job when you are a student. After graduation, you can again do off-campus job, but this time through OPT. So without any paperwork, or I mean, you need paperwork to work off-campus basically. There is no ifs and buts to it. And what Yogesh was asking is along the same lines, is on-campus job you can do anywhere. It doesn't have to be related to your field of study. Like Navnika worked at dining center. I mean, she didn't do a master's in like cooking or something, but you can do anywhere, literally anywhere in your campus. So on-campus job, anything is allowed, but for off-campus, it has to be related somehow to your field of studies. I'm not saying that if you're doing like fluid mechanics, everything has to be related to fluid mechanics, but some part of it has to be related to your major. That is what a internship is, and it has to be approved through the CPT, which is known as the curriculum practical training. You sign up for a CPT course. In few universities is 1 credit, at NYU it's 1.5 credits. So you pay for that 1.5 credit course, which is counting towards your graduation. And then you can work off campus and you get a salary, as well as you can put it in your resume. But that's what the CPT is. So for CPT, you have to, once you get an offer for an internship, you have to talk to your department, talk to your international students office in your university and apply for the CPT. It usually takes a few days to get approved since it's internal. And once you get the approval and the employer authorization document, the EAD, they say, then you're, I mean, the updated I-20, which states that your CPT is approved for a particular date, you're allowed to work for that company for those internship periods.
Yeah, a CPT is basically a document, something that allows you to work on a student visa off campus. And just like Debrup mentioned, you have to be in the US for a certain period of time before you're eligible for CPT. Like usually for me, I was told that you have to be on campus for 2 semesters before you can apply for your CPT. So usually these off-campus internships, generally, you know, if you do it in the fall, 2 semesters means in the next summer, you will be eligible for your CPT. And the thing with CPT is that you can actually work 40 hours. You don't have to be limited to your 20 hours a week for CPT.
Awesome.
And yeah, and OPT is something that you do after graduation. So that basically is different in the sense that it allows you to actually work full time at a company after graduation on your student visa until you get your work visa. So those are, I think that's something that probably needs to be discussed in a separate
Yeah.
session, you know, that's, but
Guys,
I
we
just thought I
will
would,
be, yeah, we will definitely
yeah.
be doing sessions on all of this, but I hope that your answer, the questions around what is CPT, how does it operate, are answered, Anisha and Yogesh.
Yeah.
Are there
And
any limitations on how many hours, something that you can do in CPT? Like, does it limit to, let's say, doing only 1-2 internships or certain number of hours? Is there some kind of limitation around this?
So my master's course was only 1 year. So I just ended up going directly for OPT instead of CPT because there was no point in me getting the CPT. And OPT is like, it's like a full-time actual job, which is what I'm working right now. So that's not, so your question is not something that I have experience in. So if Debrup would like to kind of talk about that.
So with CPT, I mean, when I did my internship during my master's, I did it through something called a pre-completion OPT because my university, my department at that time didn't have a CPT, which was quite absurd. But The way it works is you're allowed to work up to 40 hours a week. And at the end of the semester, you have to submit a report to the professor based on which you're given the grade. Many students, what they did was they got the CPT approved, worked for the company, made a lot of money, forgot to submit the report, got an F grade. So that has happened. I've seen people, I mean, there are a lot of things that have happened. I've seen with.
Guys,
So
Debrup is like literally a treasure trove of all the things. Those of you who've been with us for the last 2-3 sessions would know Debrup has the best stories. So on what to do and what not to do. So I'm really curious to hear this one, Debrup.
yeah, because I mean, at the end of the day, how will the professor know that? I think you need to submit 2 reports when you are on CPT. That wasn't needed for pre-completion OPT, but for CPT, you need to submit, I think, a mid-semester report and a final report. Mid-semester report is just for, I mean, if you get a C, doesn't mean you're going to get a C at the end of the semester. If you get an A, doesn't mean you'll end up with an A. It's just to make sure if the professor is happy with your progress as to what you're doing in the company, or if he wants something more from you, like your report doesn't look too good, what else have you worked on? Doesn't mean your job role has to change in the company, because you can't change the company's work structure, but your report needs to be managed, and I mean, it has to be structured in a different way. So make sure do that. I mean, make sure to submit the report. And I haven't actually heard anybody doing 2 internships with 1 CPT. I mean, I'll have to ask around to see if that anybody has done, because
No, I was asking from like during the semester point of view.
during the semester, I think if you get a CPT approved, it is allowed only up to 20 hours a week, not 40. 40 is only for summer. And you can't do a CPT as well as an on-campus job simultaneously, from what I know, because when I was doing my pre-completion OPT in my last semester, I wasn't, for 20 hours a week, because it was a semester, I wasn't allowed to do an on-campus job. So I guess, I mean, I'm not too 100% sure about this rule, because it's a little complicated and I haven't experienced it. It's better if you talk to the international admissions office, but I told you what I had experienced, that I wasn't allowed to do an on-campus job simultaneously.
Got it, guys. That's a lot of information for today. Thank you so much, Navnika and Debrup. Guys, I'm just going to take 5 minutes to Kritika, I'll talk to you. I'll talk about the recording. Just hang on for 5 minutes, guys. I'll tell you a little bit more about, what we're planning to do. A lot of the questions that you guys have that may not have been answered or are really specific to either, a particular kind of activity or internship. Please join on the Slack channel, and we'll make sure that, even if we don't know the answer, we find a reliable mentor to get you an answer. Debrup has an incredible blog, which he's posted here, which has a lot of answers to many questions that you may have as well. Please help us rate by rating the session on the Slido link. And I've also shared the link to the Slack. So if you post it there, we'll be doing basically every Saturday. As you guys head out, we will be doing sessions every Saturday. And once you're in the US, on US time, we will be doing sessions that are more career specific. So if you're interested in consulting or in mechanical engineering, computer science, product management, for all of those, sessions will start opening up. Right now, we're keeping sessions a little more generic. Mandeep, please ask the questions on the Slack channel. We'll take them up there and make sure that your questions are answered. Don't worry about that. What we're aiming with this community is that it isn't a community like the other ones that you may have seen, where you ask questions and no one answers them. We make sure that every question that gets asked is replied to either by someone from the LevelUp team or by one of our incredible mentors like Navnika and Debrup. We're working on getting a lot more mentors on board, and mentors who, like you guys, have come from India, have gone through the same journey as you, know the struggle, know some of the questions that, to you may be intimidated to ask them to your classmates or your professors, but we want this to be ultimately a place where you can come, ask questions, get answers from people who've walked the talk and, been through the same journey as you. Like Navnika and Debrup, who've made, time on a Saturday morning when they could have been outside enjoying their summer to talk to you guys and share their experiences and learnings. I hope that you guys found this useful, and we will see you again next Saturday. Please. Sorry,
And
yeah, go on, Debrup.
couple of things came to my mind. I just want
Yeah,
to share
of
two
course.
other places where you can find on-campus jobs. One is the university admissions office. Like most of you might be asking questions. Hey, I have this question, that question related to my admission. Is the student assistants who reply to you. So that's one place. And another is the international students admissions office who deal with your I-20s and stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
what happens is sometimes the admissions officer approves your I-20 and then the students are sometimes responsible for shipping it out and stuff like that. So those positions are also available. So make sure to ask your university about those as well.
And there's actually one more thing that I wanted to add is that, guys, if you do end up getting an on-campus job, please, the first thing, please, that you have to do is apply for something called a social security number. So this is something, a social security number is kind of compulsory when you have a job later after you graduate. You don't necessarily need it when you're working an on-campus job, but it's really going to help you because later when you apply for an OPT, you have the option of applying for a social security number during that OPT process. And what happens is often the case is that your social security number arrives really late, and so you can't start working until you have like a social security. You're not legally allowed to do that. So if you can apply for one beforehand, then please do that. So that's one more thing that I would
So
just
how
like
do
to
you
say.
apply for one beforehand? Is it possible to do that?
You can only apply for it if you actually have a job. So once you get like an on-campus job, you have to talk to your international office and they will give you a letter saying that, yes, you are approved to have a social security number. And then you have to make an appointment with the social security office and go there and speak to them and everything. So that's another process by itself. Whereas if you apply for a social security number when you're applying for OPT, you don't actually have to go to the social security office and everything. They'll just mail it to you along the same time as your EAD or your employment authorization document. But like I said, often the case is that the SSN comes a little late. So you don't want to lose a few days or a few
Few
weeks of
days,
your
got it.
OPT just waiting for your SSN. So that's just something that I wanted to mention.
Awesome. Cool. All right. Thank you so much, guys, for an incredible session. I know some of you have more questions. I'm posting the Slack channel for the 10th time. But guys, please do join on Slack. We'll make sure all of these questions are answered there. And any other questions you have about anything related to the US and careers, happy to answer those. So please hop on to the Slack channel and ask your questions there. We'll make sure that they are answered. A lot of you have messaged me saying, are we doing a resume session? Yes, we are doing a resume as part of our networking masterclasses. You guys, whoever was here last week, LinkedIn was the first part of our networking masterclass. The next one will be on resumes. And if you all want to speak to people that are specific to your career track, we will try and find you mentors who are in your chosen field also to review the more technical aspects of your resume. But first things first, because you guys are going to be adding a lot of people on LinkedIn or talking to people or even fellow students who are, I know a lot of you are putting stuff on your putting stuff on your LinkedIn that I am going to so and so university, networking with other students who are going there. It's important that your LinkedIn is the first thing that you get right. So on the Slack channel, Satyam, I will be posting the recorded session so you can have a look at those. There's a LinkedIn feedback channel. So once you guys have reviewed and made the changes to your LinkedIn profile, please post your LinkedIn profile there. So other members of the community as well as mentors can tell you what you can do better or how to improve your LinkedIn profile. It's super important that your LinkedIn profile looks good. And then we will talk about resumes and networking and all of those generic skills in the next couple of weeks also. Cool. So thank you so much for making it today, guys. Really appreciate you making the time on a Saturday evening. And on a Saturday morning, Navnika and Debrup are wonderful mentors. Vishesh unfortunately had to drop off, but I will thank him on the Slack channel. From all of you, I'd love if you all could just put your cameras on even for a minute so we can take a quick picture. It's important that, we want to tell more people about the community also. So if you have friends or other people in your WhatsApp groups or Discord channel, or people who are headed to the US, please share the Slack channel as well as any upcoming events with them too, so that they can also, learn from our fantastic mentors and get a sense of what to expect when they get to the US. So great to see so many of you. Guys, I'm going to start next time onwards. We've deliberately kept this not as a webinar so that we can see some of your faces, because I know I've seen some of you on multiple sessions, but I don't know what you look like. But yeah, I'm going to wait for another 10 seconds for people to turn their cameras on. Guys, please just do it for 2 minutes. Awesome. Thanks. All right, guys. There's 40 of us. I can't see more than like 15 people. This is really disappointing, but
I can really see here. I know a friend of mine, I mean, a junior, Sudhanshu Pandey, he's basically displaying NYU campus. So
Sudhanshu is already excited to get to NYU. I'm very jealous of everyone. I'd just like to say that everyone who is headed out this year, after joining Leap, which was only 2 months ago, I have really reconsidered all my life choices, and I'm thinking I'll do an MBA. You guys can be my mentors next year. I'll be like, hi, Dhrumil, how do I apply for my visa? How do I apply, for my SSN number? So make sure that you guys learn everything properly this year. Next year, it'll probably be me needing advice from all of you. But it's great to have all of you on board. And I look forward to getting to know each of you over the next couple of weeks a lot more closely. We want to build a community where, y'all are able to, we want to build it with you. So tomorrow, if you tell me, Megha, this is what we need a session on, instead of the session that you have organized, which nobody wants to attend, please feel free to tell me that, because that's going to help us also have not just content, but have you connected to people who are likely to actually have an impact on your career and on your life in the US, rather than us deciding what we think you want. So we'd love to hear on Slack. I know a lot of you have already DM'd me. We've spoken or had a catch up on Zoom separately, but do let me know if there's something in particular that's on your mind that we can organize for y'all. But yeah, I'm just going to take a quick picture. Dhrumil, we have lost Dhrumil again. But yeah, cool. Smile, everybody. Okay, Dhrumil is back, guys, so we have to do another one with him. Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. I'll see you hopefully next Saturday. Look out on Slack and on your email for the next one. Thanks, Debrup. Thanks, Navnika. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, Megha, for the opportunity of speaking, and I hope you guys
Not at all.
learned a lot from this.
Yeah, I'm sure everyone
Yeah,
did. I
definitely.
only learned so much from it. I think next year I'm actually going to apply.
learning. So everybody learns every day.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, guys. Take care. Have a great Sunday.
All right, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for the session.
Not at all. See you next Saturday.